Logan Vance lived alone by choice. 3 years ago, after serving as a combat engineer in the Terran Exodus War, he walked away from everything: his rank, his unit, and the noise. He purchased an abandoned power relay station on Lixery 5, a humid, forested moon far beyond the trade routes, and rebuilt it into a self-sustaining outpost. Since then, his days had been routine: repairing scavenged tech, running off-grid diagnostics, and keeping his hands busy enough to quiet the memories. The outside world rarely intruded. That was the point. Tonight, the storm had come early. Wind howled through the trees like it was trying to tear something loose. Rain hammered the Durasteel roof and blurred the outer surveillance feed into gray static. The air inside the outpost felt heavier, charged from the pressure drop. Logan sat at his workbench with a half-dismantled transmitter module, trying to fix a short in the relay board. The smell of burnt circuitry clung to the air. The forest outside turned to black ink, thick with moisture and buzzing life. The outpost's interior lights dimmed automatically to conserve power, casting everything in a pale, amber glow. Logan checked the external sensors one last time. No signs of movement, no heat signatures, no residual plasma trails. Still, he kept his rifle charged and close. Inside, the silence was broken only by the occasional mechanical hiss from the atmospheric regulator. Saraxa slept again, her body finally responding to rest and hydration. Allery, the baby, lay quietly in a repurposed storage crate beside her, wide-eyed and still. Logan sat on a stool nearby, hunched over a portable scanner, running diagnostic loops he'd already completed twice. He wasn't just watching, he was thinking. In the last 36 hours, his life had shifted violently, from isolation to responsibility. And the scar across her right cheek said she'd seen combat. Her tunic was torn and scorched. Blood had dried into the fabric. She had a plasma wound just above her left hip. Cauterized, but not well. "Medic," she whispered through gritted teeth. Her voice cracked with dehydration. "Please." Logan didn't move for a second. His brain fired through options. Someone left a baby on his doorstep in the middle of a storm. An alien woman, injured, alone, possibly being pursued. No ID, no message, no demands. He had no idea what kind of heat this could bring down on him if he got involved. But she hadn't tried to trick him. She hadn't tried to push her way in. She'd handed him the baby, then collapsed. Logan stepped aside and pulled her into the outpost with one arm, closing the door with the other. The reinforced hatch sealed shut, muting the storm behind thick layers of alloy. He carried her to the cot in the corner and laid her down gently. He keyed in a new message: rendezvous shift, point 51K, 3 kilometers west. Approach quiet. Hostiles near old site. The unit flashed. ACK received. Confirmed. ETA 6 hours. Hold position. Logan closed the screen, then looked at Saraxa. "There's a cave system 1 kilometer from here. Old lava tubes. Shielded. We wait there." "We can make it," she said. He looked at her, not just at her posture, but her skin tone, her voice. She was exhausted, but she hadn't complained once. She hadn't asked for help. "Let me carry her the rest of the way," he said. Saraxa hesitated, then handed Allery to him with care. He adjusted the cloth and wrapped it against his chest, securing the baby between the folds of his jacket. She fit there with surprising ease. They moved again, slower now but steady. By the time the forest began to open into the rocky pass, the first drops of rain started to fall again. The sky darkened. A low rumble rolled over the horizon. She didn't answer. "You bring a child to someone like me. Unannounced, unarmed, injured. That's either desperation or suicide. I didn't have a choice. What happened? They came for me. For her." Logan looked down at the baby. "What is she?" "She's mine." "That's not what I asked." Saraxa looked away. "I didn't know where else to go. I just knew you live alone. Off-grid. You didn't hate our kind during the war. You were lucky I opened the door." "No," she whispered. She was. Logan rubbed a hand over his jaw and turned away, walking to the panel near the door. The perimeter sensors were picking up faint heat signatures at long range. Nothing precise yet, but someone had followed them. Or would. He returned to the cot. Saraxa had closed her eyes. Not asleep, too tense. Just resting. The baby was still watching him. He sat down on the metal chair near the wall and exhaled slowly. His instincts screamed for caution. He scanned the room. Saraxa hadn't moved from the cot. Her breathing was slow but stable. The floor was still intact. Her body had stopped trembling. The burn looked better, less inflamed. She was tough, no question. The baby was curled inside the crate, now lined with folded thermal cloth. She had stirred once during the night, fussed a little, then drifted back into sleep. Logan had fed her a nutrient solution used for hybrid species, one of the few supplies he'd never expected to use. He stood and walked quietly to the front console. The perimeter scan was clean. No movement within 2 kilometers. Either their pursuers had turned back, or they were being careful. His eyes lingered on the scanner, then drifted to the medical report pulled from his field kit's biometric scanner. Saraxa's blood markers confirmed she was Zalari, but there were anomalies, elevated hormone levels, gene expressions that didn't match standard Zalari strain. Not mutations. Something else. From watching birds through a cracked viewport to studying the faint biometric pulse of a half-human infant dropped at his door. The transition hadn't been gentle. What the hell was he doing? He glanced at Saraxa. Her breathing was deeper now, her skin tone less pale. The wound would heal. The question was whether she'd survive what came next. He needed more information. The next morning, he powered up his secure terminal and opened a restricted access channel. He hadn't used it since the day he decommissioned his rank, but the credentials still worked. The screen lit up with a flicker of green text. He typed fast, clean. Accessing. Zalari Human Diplomatic Project Archive. Request. Genetic program files. Hybrid entry authorization. Credentials. Vance, Logan, Symbiar, retired. After 3 minutes of silence, the screen flashed. Clearance granted. Lines of text streamed in. Logan's jaw tightened as he read. It had started earlier than public reports suggested. If Voss gets us out, if we survive this, you'll be hunted for the rest of your life. Allery too. Is there a point where you give her up? Not to them, but to someone who can raise her in peace. The question hung heavy in the air. Saraxa didn't get angry, didn't flinch. Her voice stayed steady. If I believed anyone else could protect her better, I would have left her already. But there's no one. I saw what they did to the others. I saw what they called mercy. Logan nodded. It wasn't a confrontation. It was a moment of truth. She doesn't just need to live, Saraxa said. She needs to grow up knowing she's not property, not a tool. That's what I'm fighting for. He looked at the child in her arms. Allery was sleeping again, her tiny hand curled against her mother's collar. And what about you? He asked. What do you want? Saraxa blinked slowly, then replied, I want the war to be over. For real. I want to stop moving. I want to let my guard down and not pay for it with blood. When she saw him, she didn't speak. She just extended the bundle forward. Logan stepped closer, hands raised to show he wasn't armed. He took the bundle carefully. It was warm, light. The weight distribution felt off. He adjusted the fabric. Inside, swaddled and calm, was a baby, not human. The skin had a soft sapphire tint, almost glowing under the stormlight. Her silver eyes blinked slowly, but she made no sound. She stared at him with focused awareness, too quiet for a newborn. What the hell? He muttered, stepping back half a step. Behind him, the storm roared through the trees. The woman exhaled hard and dropped to one knee. Hey, hey, Logan called out, catching her before she hit the ground. Her hood fell back. She wasn't human either. Tall, elegant features, elongated pupils, thin facial markings that pulsed faintly with bioluminescence. Zalari. He recognized the species from his deployment in Sector 9. Not common, not aggressive, but cautious. Her eyes flicked toward the child. I was part of a diplomatic program, she began slowly. Years ago, when the war ended. Quiet missions, genetic compatibility studies, human-Zalari relations. We were trying to create trust. And she was the result? Logan asked. I volunteered. I didn't plan to become a mother. But when it happened, I kept her. They wanted data. I saw a life. I left. Logan watched her carefully. No lies in her voice. No attempt to justify. Just the truth, plain and heavy. You know they'll come after you again, he said. They already did. They killed the team that helped me escape. My mate died, tried to slow them down. That's why I came here. Logan absorbed that in silence. I'm not asking you to fight, she added. I just needed time. A day. Maybe two. Then we'll leave. He shook his head. You won't survive another run in your condition. And the baby, Allery, she won't last on open terrain. Saraxa looked away. Logan continued, his voice firm now. The child's data was even more unusual. The genome showed hybrid sequences, human-compatible base markers interwoven with Zalari DNA. That didn't happen naturally, which meant Saraxa hadn't just been on the run. She had been part of something. He shut the report and turned back toward the cot. She was watching him now. You scanned me, she said, voice dry. I needed to know what I was treating. You scanned her too? Yes. A beat of silence. She didn't seem angry, just resigned. Then you know, she said. I know she's not full Zalari, he replied. But I also know she's alive. And stable. That's what matters. Saraxa pushed herself upright, wincing slightly. Logan stepped closer, ready to steady her, but she waved him off. She's not a project, she said. She's not a mistake. She wasn't made for research. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Logan leaned against a nearby table, arms crossed. So tell me what I missed. Saraxa hesitated. They waited. The hunters paused, then shifted course. Just a few degrees. But enough. Logan exhaled. We've got 10 minutes, maybe 15. To do what? To vanish. He led her down a maintenance ladder into the generator sublevel, an old access crawl space that had collapsed long ago. But he'd seen something on the map, an old engineer's exit point, likely overlooked, not logged in modern grid maps. He found it behind a corroded fuse bank, a narrow shaft sealed by a rusted pressure door. He pried the lock with a plasma cutter and forced the hatch open. The smell of wet rock and old oil spilled out. He crawled in first, then reached back for Allery. The baby stirred but didn't cry. Saraxa followed, silent, deliberate. Behind them, the station creaked under weight. Footsteps. Fussed. Multiple. The hunters had entered. Logan closed the hatch and slid the manual bar across. It wouldn't hold them long, but it didn't need to. They just had to stay ahead. The crew didn't speak unless necessary. Marin kept to the cockpit. Logan and Saraxa tended to Allery, cleaned the wound dressing, fed her, wrapped her again. There was no more running to do. No more hiding. Not tonight. When the ship finally broke orbit and entered deep space, Logan walked to the small side compartment he once helped design during the war, an emergency medical unit with reinforced blast plating and built-in oxygen generators. He opened it and looked inside. It was small, cramped, not ideal, but it would work. He turned to Saraxa. This will be your home for a while, until we find something better. She stepped forward and looked around, then back at him. I've lived in worse. He nodded, then surprised even himself by asking, and when you're ready to stop running, will you stay? Saraxa didn't answer immediately. She looked at Allery, now sleeping on her shoulder. Then she turned to him. If you'll have us, she said. Has she been checked? Logan asked. Saraxa nodded. Genetic stability solid. But she's quiet. Doesn't vocalize unless in distress. We think it's part of the neural link sequencing. She picks up on stress. Reads tone. She's reading me? She's reading everything. Logan crouched down and looked at her closely. Then I hope she knows I'm not the enemy. Behind him, Saraxa whispered. That's what I hope too. Later that day, he sealed the windows with reinforced panels, powered up the silent defense grid, and ran a deep perimeter scan. The outpost became a bunker. Quiet, shielded, watchful. He was no longer alone. And Lixery, 5 was no longer neutral ground. Whatever this child represented, research, betrayal, salvation, it had landed on his doorstep. And for reasons he didn't fully understand, Logan Vance had decided to protect her, even if it meant the war wasn't quite over. Not yet. Night came fast on Lixery 5. Years before the ceasefire, covert teams had explored cross-species viability, not for warfare, but for post-war alliances. Biological proof of peace. Volunteers had come forward, including Zalari scout personnel and Terran engineers stationed on the outer colonies. Saraxa had been one of the first, and she hadn't disappeared. She had defected. The mission report stated she'd gone AWOL a year before her pregnancy was confirmed. The files didn't name her child, but they referenced subject ALX-7 as the only successful hybrid to reach neural synchronization benchmarks. Logan leaned back, eyes narrowing. Neural synchronization. That's why Allery didn't cry. That's why she reacted to tone, to movement, to emotional cues. She was listening with more than ears. When Saraxa woke, she found Logan staring at the screen. Her expression didn't change. She already knew. "You accessed the project," she said flatly. "I needed context," he replied. "I don't like operating in the dark." "He will." "How do you know?" Logan turned his eyes to the sky. "Because the last time he didn't, I buried 5 people." Above them, the clouds shifted. A shape emerged, silent, wide-winged, gliding through the rain. Vasicum. The dropship descended without sound, military-grade stealth engines blanketing the air in pressure instead of noise. Its hull was scorched from age and aftermarket mods, matte black with faded Terran insignia half covered by repainted panels. It hovered just above the crater floor, vertical thrusters flaring once before it touched down in a perfect soft landing. The side hatch opened. A man stepped out, broad-shouldered, half-armored, head shaved, expression unreadable. His rifle hung low, but not idle. His movements were fluid, careful, like someone who hadn't trusted a single day of peace. Logan stepped forward first. "Marin." The man didn't speak at first. He scanned the area, eyes locking on Saraxa, then Allery. "This your mess?" he asked. "But I can't have that unless she does first." Logan understood more than he wanted to admit. The war had ended on paper, but for people like them, it had never really stopped. It had just changed shape. New enemies, new rules, same threats. He checked the time again. 3 hours. Suddenly, a sound, metal scraping stone. He froze. Saraxa caught it too. She moved fast, placing Allery behind her, hand on her weapon. Logan stood and edged toward the cave entrance. He peeked out slowly, one eye above the rocks. A dark shape moved through the mist. One figure, humanoid, crouched, close, too close. He ducked back. "Not Voss," he said. "Wrong profile. One scout. Solo. Advance guard?" Saraxa asked. "Maybe. Or someone who picked up the trail." He handed Saraxa the child, then powered on his drone. It hovered silently, camouflaged in low light, and zipped toward the entrance. On the feed, the scout crept forward, rifle up. No insignia, no markings. The cave walls held the heat well. Logan had chosen the right place. Deep enough to mask their presence, narrow enough to defend. The floor was dry, the stone stable. For the first time in days, they had more than minutes of rest. But neither Logan nor Saraxa closed their eyes. He checked the time. 4 hours left. Outside, the rain fell in slow sheets, soft against the rocks and foliage. The sounds helped mask movement, but also made visibility impossible. Saraxa sat on the ground, knees pulled in, arms around Allery. She wasn't asleep, but she barely moved. Logan could see the toll. Her wound was healing, but her energy was running low. He offered her a nutrient pack from the med kit. She accepted it silently and sipped. "How long can you keep doing this?" he asked. "As long as I have to, even if it means never stopping." She looked up. "What are you asking, Logan?" He hesitated, then said it. "And she deserves to grow up without people deciding her future for her." Marin gave him a long look. Then, with a grunt, turned to the cockpit. "Take us to Sagan's Divide. It's off path. Mining colonies abandoned. No patrols in 5 years." "It'll do." The ship lifted silently, vanishing into the clouds. Below, the forest faded into mist. Logan sat across from Saraxa in the rear hold, watching Allery. She was awake, arms free from the sling now. Her silver eyes drifted between her mother and Logan. Then she smiled, small, barely noticeable, but real. It was the first time she'd done it. Saraxa noticed too. Her face softened in a way it hadn't since she arrived at Logan's door. "She's never smiled at anyone but me," she said. Logan didn't respond right away. He felt something in his chest shift. Oneitlösning. A weight easing. She's safe now, he said quietly. For how long? As long as I breathe, he replied. The next hours passed in silence. He'd spent 3 years avoiding this exact situation, getting involved again, picking a side, risking exposure. But the baby had looked at him like she knew him. And Saraxa had trusted him with her life in less than 30 seconds. He had questions. He had concerns. But for now, she needed rest. The baby needed care. And whoever had done this to them might still be tracking them through the storm. He powered up the external defense systems, passive only for now. No weapons yet, just motion sensors and pressure alerts. Outside, the storm showed no sign of slowing. Inside, Logan Vance, who thought he'd left everything behind, realized that war or not, he was now part of someone else's fight, and he had already chosen a side. He hadn't shut the door. Logan woke before sunrise. The storm had eased into a steady drizzle, and the filtered light through the ceiling panel gave the room a pale, washed-out hue. His back ached from sleeping in the chair, but his mind hadn't rested. A warm light spilled from a single overhead lamp, casting long shadows. Then he heard it, a knock. He froze. Not mechanical, not wind. A knock. Quiet. Measured. No one knocked out here. He stood and walked to the reinforced door, every movement deliberate. His right hand hovered over the sidearm holstered at his thigh, an old reflex. He tapped a button on the panel. The security camera struggled to focus through the storm, but a figure was visible. Small, holding something, covered in a soaked cloak. Motionless. Logan narrowed his eyes. No vehicle on the scanner. No signals. Just this person, out in the storm alone. He hesitated, then unlocked the manual latch and pulled the door open. Wind rushed in. The storm hit him like a wall. She stood just outside the threshold. Shorter than him, maybe just over 6 feet with the hood up. She clutched a bundle to her chest, wrapped tightly in thick fabric. Her arms trembled, not from cold, but from strain. The baby, still wrapped tightly, he placed in a padded crate on the floor beside the cot. The infant didn't cry, just looked around wide-eyed. He unzipped the emergency medkit and began cleaning the wound. It was deep, but not fatal. The cauterization had stopped the bleeding, but infection was setting in. She flinched as the antiseptic hit her skin. "Stay still," he said, not unkindly. "Name Saraxa," she whispered. He didn't respond right away. He was focused on the wound. He wrapped the burn with a sterile bandage and connected a hydration drip to her forearm. "You got a surname, Saraxa?" he finally asked. "No one left to use it." Logan gave a short nod. "You military?" "Scout division," she murmured. "Retired. Like you." Logan paused. "You know who I am?" "Logan Vance. Former engineer, Terran Mobile Corps. 15th Unit, Olive on campaign. I heard your name." He looked at her carefully now, more alert. "You're a long way from any Zalari colony. What are you doing here?" "I didn't want to involve you. You involved me the second you left her on my doorstep." Saraxa sat up slowly. "Did you read what they did to the other test subjects?" "I read enough. You think I ran because I was scared?" "I ran because they saw her as a breakthrough, not a daughter. They had protocols if she showed instability. I watched them sterilize an entire nursery when another hybrid failed the baseline scans." Logan closed the screen. "And you think they're still after her?" "I know they are. She's not data to them. She's a diplomatic weapon. If they control her, they control the narrative. Proof of peace through engineered life. And if they don't, they erase her." Quietly, Logan looked at Allery, who now reached out toward a loose fiber strand hanging from the cot. She gripped it in tiny fingers, but didn't pull, just held it. Is she aware of what's happening? Not consciously, but she knows she's not safe. She hasn't slept more than 2 hours since we left the lab. Logan rubbed his face, tension building at the base of his skull. The weight of decisions was shifting. This wasn't just a medical stopover anymore. He was housing a political lightning rod. And the second that outpost was found, fire would follow. He stood and walked to the console, opened the map overlay. There were still escape tunnels, unregistered storm ducts left over from mining operations decades ago. He marked 3 routes. If they had to run, there would be options. But options wouldn't last forever. Why now, he asked. Why bring her to me now, after all this time? Saraxa looked at him, her tone stripped of pretense. Because I was out of places to hide, and I needed someone who wouldn't sell her out. You disappeared after the war. Cut all ties. You weren't part of any colony council. You never took a position. That meant I could trust you more than anyone still active. Logan didn't reply. As soon as the outpost scanner confirmed the presence of an unregistered vessel hovering in low orbit, he activated the silent lockdown. External lights went dark. Power rerouted to thermal masking. The reinforced shutters slid into place over the windows with a soft hiss. He stepped away from the control console, turned, and locked eyes with Saraxa, who was already awake, sitting up, alert, and holding Allery close against her chest. She hadn't asked what was happening. She didn't need to. They found us, Logan said quietly. How long? She asked, her voice low but steady. Just now, hovering above the south ridge. No IFF signal, no communication. Could be a scout, or just a scan sweep, but they're not far. She nodded. Then we need to move. Not yet. He shook his head. Too much heat outside. They haven't scanned below the tree line. Not aggressively, at least. They're looking, not striking. Sarax's grip on the child tightened. You think it's them? My pursuers? He didn't have to. Later, while Saraxa rested again, he took Allery outside during a break in the rain. The sky was gray, but clear enough to see the upper cloud bands moving west. The baby blinked at the light, but didn't fuss. She reached out toward a falling leaf and let it touch her hand before curling her fingers. Logan held her close. There was something grounding about her silence. She didn't wail. She didn't squirm, but she was present, watching, learning, choosing to trust him. As they returned inside, the console lit up with a soft ping. Unregistered vessel. 2 kilometers out. No ID beacon. Hovering. Logan's jaw tightened. They'd found them. The war he left was knocking again. Only this time, it wasn't about sides. It was about who he was willing to protect, and what he'd risk to keep a promise he never made, but had already started to keep. Logan didn't panic. He moved with precision. You didn't pick this outpost by chance. You knew I wouldn't turn you away. You were a name whispered in corridors, she admitted. A soldier who fixed machines better than people. But you didn't hate us. You refused to use Zalari tech as target practice, even when ordered. He said nothing. You were our best chance. Logan stood there, conflicted. The soldier in him saw the risk. His old instinct screamed at him to call it in, to let someone else deal with it. But the man in him, the one who had locked himself away for years, felt something else. Responsibility. 2 days, he said finally. You stay inside. You heal. I'll handle surveillance. After that, we'll decide. Her shoulders relaxed just slightly. Not in relief, but in acknowledgement. Thank you. He didn't reply. He walked toward the baby's crate. She stirred, small hands uncurling in sleep. Her breath was slow and steady. There was something about the way she didn't cry. She hadn't cried once. I bet my life on it. And now it's not just mine on the line. She didn't argue. Logan pulled up the emergency routing system on the backup terminal. From beneath the outpost, 3 old access ducts led out, each running to different parts of the forest. They were narrow, unstable, and not built for long-term survival. But one of them opened into a service hollow near the edge of the crater rim. From there, the dense canopy would mask heat signatures. If escape became necessary, that was the best option. We'll use the supply tunnel if they land, Logan said. I've got an old-terrain rover stashed at the hollow. It still runs. We make it there, we have a shot. Sarax's expression didn't change. She'd expected this. The part she hadn't expected, though, Logan was no longer just giving advice. He was planning with her. Committed. Why are you doing this? She asked. I'm not sure anymore, he answered honestly. But I know I can't watch them take her. Saraxa blinked once. The old-terrain rover, built for military scouts and hostile ground, glided quietly over roots and loose stone. Logan kept one hand steady on the wheel, the other near the pulse pistol at his hip. The narrow windshield fogged from the humid air, but the auto wipers swept it clear every few seconds, revealing streaks of deep green and shadowed trunks passing like columns in the dark. In the passenger seat, Saraxa clutched Allery against her chest. The child remained calm, nestled inside her mother's jacket, eyes half closed but alert. She hadn't made a sound since they left the outpost. "She's not sleeping," Logan said without looking. "She doesn't feel safe enough," Saraxa replied. "She won't until the danger's behind us." Logan glanced at the rear display. No sign of pursuit yet. Still, they couldn't assume they were clear. The Zalari could deploy drones, or worse, use local bounty contracts. And there, barely visible through moss and time, stood the structure. Towering steel supports, a collapsed antenna dish, power cores long dead, but enough shielding to hide them while Logan worked. He brought the rover to a halt near a concrete access hatch half buried in soil. "This is it." Saraxa stepped out slowly, shielding Allery's head with her arm. The cold hit them immediately, drier than air near the outpost, but sharp and biting. She winced as her healing side wound tugged, but she didn't complain. They entered the relay station through a rusted auxiliary door. Inside, it was silent, empty. Layers of dust covered old consoles. Broken screens flickered with ghost signals. Logan swept the interior quickly, verified there were no squatters, then cleared a space near the uplink core. "Set her down here," he said, gesturing toward an insulated mat. Saraxa laid Allery down gently. The baby's eyes scanned the room. Then, finally, she blinked once, slowly, and closed her eyes. "She's already born, already stable. What use is she if they can't control her?" Saraxa's response was slow, deliberate. "She's proof. Political leverage. The Zalari Council lost control of the hybrid program after I escaped. If they recover her alive, they can rewrite the narrative. Claim the child was a sanctioned success, raised under their care. That opens up talks with the Terran factions again." Logan frowned. "And if she's dead, then the project ends. The idea of integration dies with her. The Council can bury the whole thing and move on." He nodded slowly, understanding now the full scope. Allery wasn't just valuable. She was decisive. Alive, she represented a bridge. Dead, she erased years of political embarrassment. The scanner beeped softly. The vessel was descending. Logan moved. He pulled his sidearm, grabbed a weather-sealed duffel from the gear wall, and began filling it with food packs, water cartridges, medical supplies, thermal blankets, and spare power cells. Lixery 5 wasn't a populated moon, but it had smugglers and mercs running through its denser valleys. Any one of them might trade safety for credits. "You said you'd contact someone," Saraxa added after a moment. "Who?" "Name's Marin Voss," Logan answered. "Used to run recon with me. Left the Corps after the ceasefire. Hated politics. He's off-grid now, deep outer belt. But he monitors emergency comm bursts. If I send a coded ping, he'll pick it up. And you trust him? If he's still alive, yeah." They passed a twisted section of collapsed rock and dipped beneath a fallen tree. The wheels struggled, then caught traction again. Logan didn't slow. The relay station was just under 15 kilometers north, perched along a raised ridge with clear sky access. It had once transmitted supply data to orbital stations. Now it was just a rusted skeleton, and their best chance at contact. 10 minutes later, the trees thinned. The moonlight broke through the canopy in fractured lines. He handed it to Saraxa without a word. Then he crouched beside her and looked at Allery. "She's coming with us. All the way. I won't leave her behind. Not now. Not ever." Saraxa gave a quiet nod. Together, they made their way to the subfloor access hatch. Logan pried it open and lit the tunnel with a low-power handlight. The shaft was narrow and damp, lined with old composite ribs and condensation trails. The air smelled of rust and damp earth. "Stay close," he said. They descended slowly. Saraxa moved carefully despite her healing wound. Logan carried Allery once the tunnel got too steep. She didn't cry. Her eyes flicked toward the sounds in the dark like she was memorizing them. They moved in silence for 20 minutes. Above them, the scanner back in the outpost blinked red. The ship had landed. Once they reached the tunnel's end, Logan opened the final grate. Cool forest air rushed in. They emerged into the hollow, thick with underbrush and veiled by moss-covered rock. The rover was right where he'd left it years ago, hidden beneath a collapsed tarp and old camouflage netting. It took 2 minutes to boot the power core. It worked. He helped Saraxa into the passenger side, handed her Allery, and secured the duffel in the rear. Then he slid into the driver's seat and checked the terrain monitor. They had 1 hour of light left. After that, the forest would drown in shadow. "Where are we going?" Saraxa asked. "To a comms relay station on the northern ridge," Logan said. "Abandoned, but still partially powered. If I can reroute the signal, I can send a burst message to someone I know. Off record. Trusted. You trust anyone?" "I used to," he said quietly. The rover hummed to life. Its silent drive engine pushed them forward through the brush. Behind them, far across the ridge, faint red lights flickered through the trees. They were being hunted, but they were no longer waiting. They were moving. Together. The forest thickened as they moved. Logan turned off the scanner screen and pulled the protective casing back into place, dimming the glow. No one needed to know they had spotted the movement. Not yet. He motioned to Saraxa, already alert. She picked Allery up quietly, one arm across the baby's back, her body a shield. Her eyes met his. "No panique. Just understanding." "How close?" she asked. 200 meters, he said. "Southwestern slope. Foot traffic. No ID pings, no transponder signals. That means they're tracking manually." "Hunters," Saraxa murmured. "Or worse, contract scouts." He grabbed the small weapons case he'd packed from the outpost. Inside were 2 pistols, an old combat knife, and a compact drone with a built-in audio scrambler. He handed Saraxa the backup sidearm. She took it wordlessly, checked the charge level, and tucked it into the inside strap of her jacket. They moved deeper into the relay station, up a narrow stairwell to the second floor. "Sleep, not fear. She trusts this place more than the last," Saraxa whispered. "Because it's quiet," Logan replied, "and not bleeding out heat signatures like the outpost." He pulled the casing from a panel and connected his own signal array. Small, compact, and coded. Military grade. Within minutes, the rig booted up and began pulsing a low-frequency emergency burst. Logan typed a message. "Voss, if you're alive, I need extraction. Non terran civilian in danger. Child involved. Targeted. No time to explain." Ping back with chords. "Vance." The signal bounced, encrypted, silent. Now came the wait. Logan sat back, his body finally registering the exhaustion. Not from running, from deciding. Every moment since opening that door had been a calculation with no clear answer. Saraxa sat across from him now, studying him. "You didn't ask what would happen to you if they catch us," she said. "I know what happens," he replied. "And I made peace with that 2 days ago." "Why?" Said nothing. Logan turned back to the screen. The ship was circling now, still silent. No active scans. No landing yet. He guessed they were using passive optics. Looking for movement. Listening for signals. "I need to know something," he said. "You mentioned her neural synchronization, her awareness. What's the limit of it? Can she sense danger?" Saraxa's voice dropped to a near whisper. "She senses intent. The stronger the emotion, the more she mirrors it. She reacts to your stress, your fear, your calm. Right now, she's reading us." Logan looked down. Allery was quiet in her arms. Eyes open. Tracking. "Can she project emotion?" he asked. "She's too young. But give her another year. She might be able to influence, not just reflect." Logan exhaled. That kind of ability was more than rare. It was dangerous, especially in the wrong hands. He changed the subject. "Before they find us, I want clarity. Full clarity." His tone sharpened. "What do they want her for now?" He looked at her. Really looked. "Because I don't have anything left to lose. And somehow, your daughter gave me something again. Maybe not forever, but for now, I'm not letting that go." She didn't smile. She didn't thank him, but she nodded once. They waited in silence for 20 more minutes before the console beeped. Reply received. Voss inbound. 8 hours. Stay dark. Move to point 47 in at dawn. Logan stood. Relief didn't hit him. Not fully, but direction did. "We've got a ride," he said. "And what then?" Saraxa asked. He paused. "Then we disappear. You, her, and maybe me too." somewhere no one asks questions. No more war. No more experiments. Just quiet. For how long? For as long as it takes. Outside, the wind picked up. Logan checked the scanner one last time. Movement. Small. On foot. South of the relay station. They weren't alone. Not anymore. But this time, Logan wasn't running. The tunnel led down for 30 meters, then angled north, running parallel to the ridge. Damp walls brushed against their arms. The passage was barely wide enough for Logan to move with Allery in one arm. But they pushed forward step by step. 15 minutes later, they emerged into a small ravine, shielded by overgrowth and a collapsed water tower. No line of sight from the ridge. No electronic signature. Logan dropped to one knee, scanning the treetops with his handheld unit. The hunters were still at the relay, confused, misled. They had time. Syraxis sat beside him and unwrapped Allery's outer cloth. The baby blinked up at her, then slowly turned her head to look at Logan. Her expression changed, calm, content. "She knows we got away," Syraxis said. Logan nodded. He took out his comm unit again. It was time to reroute. The rendezvous point had to change. If they led the hunters there, Voss wouldn't stand a chance. A freelancer, fully geared, visor polarized. They were scanning the cave's heat signature. Logan moved quickly. He pulled an EM scrambler disc from his pouch and lobbed it out through a side crevice. The burst went off with a quiet pop, disorienting the scout's visor feed. The figure staggered. Logan took the opening. He moved out, low and fast, and engaged at close range. A short burst from his pistol struck the scout's shoulder, spinning him. The scout dropped the rifle but pulled a shock blade from his boot. They fought hard. Brutal. Efficient. Logan blocked the first strike, drove his elbow into the scout's chest, then used the cave wall to pin him. The man thrashed, twisting, trying to regain balance. Logan caught his wrist, disarmed him, and slammed the scout's head against the rock. Once. Twice. The body dropped. He checked for life, still breathing. But not for long. Logan stripped the tracker off the scout's belt and crushed it underfoot. Most of the roof had caved in long ago, but the steel frame held, and from the far edge they had a view through shattered panels out toward the southern ridge. Logan raised his scope. Two figures moved between the trees. Tall, armed. Their uniforms were mismatched. Modular armor pieces, scavenged gear, thermal cloaks made from desert fabric overlays. Not military, not government. Freelancers. One of them paused and scanned the ground with a handheld device. The other knelt, running fingers through the damp soil. Trackers. Skilled ones. "They're here for you," Logan said. "They always are. No drones. No sweets. Means they're playing silent. Try not to spook us. That also means they want you alive." "For now," Syraxis said. Logan nodded. "We need to keep that window open." He pulled a thermal decoy patch from a case, activated it, and tossed it through a gap in the floor to the other side of the relay. It would mimic a slow-moving body signature, drawing attention west. At the entrance to the lava tubes, Logan found the opening partially collapsed, but enough remained for them to crawl inside. He activated a low-heat camp core, no flame, no signature, just thermal comfort. They settled in the shadows. Allery slept. Syraxa leaned against the wall, her breathing shallow but controlled. Logan sat across from her, staring at the mouth of the cave, rifle across his knees. "We got 6 hours," he said. 6 hours, she repeated softly. That used to mean a patrol shift. Now it means survival. She looked at him. "What happens after?" He didn't speak for a moment. Then finally, quietly, "After this, we don't run anymore. We stop somewhere. Quiet. Far. And we don't look back. You really think they'll stop hunting us?" "No, but they'll have to dig a lot harder." He looked down at Allery. "And by the time they find us again, she'll be ready." The rain fell harder now, but the cave was warm, and for now safe. He returned to the cave, breathing hard. "We gotta move. Voss won't land if there's hostile contact." Syraxa didn't ask questions. She stood, tightened her sling around Allery, and followed him into the rain. They made for the secondary extraction point, 0.51 K, higher ground. Exposed, but open enough for a clean landing. The storm hadn't let up, but it worked in their favor. Rain masked heat, blurred visibility made aerial scans unreliable. They moved quickly, sticking to rocky ground and avoiding paths. Every branch that snapped underfoot felt like a signal, but there was no turning back. When they reached the edge of the plateau, the terrain opened. A long, flat stretch of shale. Trees encircled the rim. A shallow crater sat in the center. Logan pulled the flare beacon from his belt and activated it. Blue light. Silent pulse. 1-minute intervals. Now they waited. Saraxa crouched beside him. What if they send more? They will. And what if Voss doesn't show? Logan didn't smile, but his voice was warmer than it had been in years. I already do. Behind them, stars stretched across the viewport like quiet sentinels. No more alarms. No more scanners. Just the soft hum of engines and the promise of somewhere new. Logan leaned back against the bulkhead, watching Saraxa settle in. Watching Allery sleep. The war was behind them. The door had opened again. But this time, he hadn't closed it. This time, he built something beyond it. A family. And for the first time in years, Logan Vance let himself believe they might actually be okay. Not just for now, but for good. My responsibility, Logan answered. Marin let the silence sit for a second, then nodded once. Get in. You've got 90 seconds before whatever's chasing you gets signal lock. Logan turned to Saraxa. She hesitated only a second. Then she ran. He followed close behind, shielding her from the tree line with his body as they crossed the open ground. Marin waved them through the loading ramp, then sealed the hatch the moment their boots hit the deck. Inside, the ship was cramped but solid. Red low-light strips ran along the floor. A crew of 3 manned the cockpit, focused, disciplined. No questions asked. No time wasted. Marin leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Where to? Doesn't matter, Logan said. Somewhere off-chart. No colonies. No outposts. No signal bleed. Marin raised an eyebrow. You're done hiding in caves, and now you want the deep dark? She's not a fugitive, Logan said firmly. She's a child.